Before I give my message, I want to point out something in that song we sang, Nearer My God to Thee. And, it's when writers of songs and poems, they quite often say things in a poetic manner that you have to stop and analyze. What is he really getting at? What is he really saying? And there was one line that stood out there in my mind, and I thought, well, that's odd. It says, my rest a stone. And you think, what does that mean? My rest a stone. What is he talking, or is she talking about, Sarah Adams? What is she talking about? And if you read that through again, just take your time and read it. That's referring to Genesis 28. This is a reference, a song built upon the inspiration of Genesis 28. Don't say that in there, but you read that, you find out that's what it's referring to. And it's referring to Jacob, who is travels, and he stops and he sees this vision where God gives him this covenant. And the Bible says he rests upon a stone. And this is what he said, my rest a stone. Why is that important? Because that stone, after he awoken and he understood this covenant that God made, he anointed the stone and named the stone Bethel, which means the house of God. So she said, my rest is stone, my rest is upon the house of God. I believe that's what we're referring to. And as we know in our identity, we understand that stone, after Jacob were told in Scripture that he anointed the stone, he blessed the stone, he named the stone Bethel, the house of God, and then most churches think that's kind of the end of the story. As if he anointed the stone with oil, and then he just walked away or cast it over the hillside. And yet we understand from tradition that stone became the pillar stone that the kings of Israel would stand upon when they were anointed as king. They would stand upon the stone, the pillar, they're anointed. And then when when Israel fell, Jeremiah took that stone, the Bethel stone, the house of God, and Jeremiah took it to Ireland, then they went to Scotland, and today, that very stone, that my rest the stone, the house of God, is a stone that sits under St. Edward's chair, in which ancient Israel stood upon the stone. Now the monarchs of England sit over the stone, the Bethel stone, the stone of destiny called Jacob's pillar stone, was anointed as the monarch of the realm. And so I thought that was quite interesting. I just wanted to point that out. My rest the stone, the house of God, the covenant that God made with our people. Now, I don't know if Sarah Adams understood it in that light or not. I don't know. But we certainly see that God's house is a rest for each and every one of us. Now, my message this morning is, am I a soldier of the cross? And what I'd like you to do, I asked Shelby, told Shelby, we're going to sing one more song before I get into. What page is that on? I should have looked. 176. Turn to 176. We're going to sing it, and then we're going to have this message, am I a soldier of the cross? So turn to 176 in your hymnal. This is a song written by Isaac Watts. Wrote, I think, something like 8,000 hymns. Very popular during the time of the American War for Independence. He was a very popular author of hymns. So let's all stand, and we're going to sing one more song. Am I a soldier of the cross, a follower of the Lamb, and shall I fear to own his cause, or blush to speak his name? Let's sing that. Ready, Shelby? Am I a soldier of the cross, the Lamb, and shall I fear to own his cause, or blush to speak his name? Must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease, while others fought to win the prize and sail through bloody seas? Are there no foes for
me to face, must I not step the tide? Is this my world, friend, to help me on to God? Sure, I must fight if I would reign. Increase my courage, Lord. I'll bear the toil, endure the pain, supported by thy word. Okay, y'all can be seated. Am I a soldier of the cross? Watt asks that question. The very first line is, and I think I've put it on the screen here. Am I a soldier of the cross, a follower of the Lamb? And shall I fear to own his cause, or blush to speak his name? So Watts is asking the question, Isaac Watts, am I a soldier of the cross? I don't think most Christians today think of themselves as soldiers. They don't want to be offensive. A soldier offends somebody, don't he? There's an enemy. I mean, every soldier is going to be offensive to somebody. I mean, you got an enemy. And I don't think most people think of themselves today as soldiers. They don't want to be offensive. I know Joel Osteen doesn't tell his congregation, you're soldiers, or John Hagee, or Charles Stanley, or Jimmy Swaggart, or Benny Hinn. At least not in the way we see it. Not in the way I see it. They talk about being soldiers maybe in a sense of being soldiers for Israel, or something of that nature, this bandit false state of Israel. But being a soldier, what does that really mean? What does it really mean to be a soldier? And we are, a soldier goes to war. And, you may not see it the way I do. I'm just telling you the way I see it. But we're in a war. We're in a war. We're in a holy cause. And are we prepared to embrace that cause we're in? Are we really prepared to embrace it? In fact, the Bible tells us, this is a war. Now, I know the church will want to say it's a war against your inner spirit, your inner self, okay? You're in a war against yourself, and that's true. In fact, the Bible shows us it's harder for you to control you than it is to control others. It's very easy to control others. I can tell everybody here what you're doing wrong. And I can tell you how to correct it, guarantee. I can tell you, I can probably go to Jason, I got a list. And write on down. And, we all do that. We all do that, don't we? And yet, for us to control ourselves is very difficult. The Bible says it's easier for a man to control a city. It's easier for a man to rule a city than to rule his own heart, his own flesh. So there is that war. We understand that, and we understand how difficult that may be for us. But there's also another war of gigantic proportions. And we need to understand that we are soldiers in that war. The Bible tells us it's a war against principalities, against powers, against the dark rulers of this world, and against spiritual wickedness in high places. It's more than just, I'm tempted to whatever sin you may be tempted to commit. It's more than just attempting to overcome your flesh, as difficult that is. He's telling us there's a war up against powers. The Apostle Paul there, when he talks about this, he said, listen guys, there's some great powers out there. Gigantic powers. And you better be prepared for it. This is not just fluffy little church talk. He's given some real meaning. There's some real powerful people out there. And they control massive things, principalities and powers and spiritual wickedness in high places. And we see them all about us today. We see them all about us. And we're called to be a soldier in that battle. If you're going to be a follower of Jesus, you need to understand you are at war. You're a soldier. You are at war. It's not that we want to be soldiers. It's not that we want to be soldiers. It's just that you are. If you're a follower of Christ, then you are. You don't have a choice in the matter. You're a soldier for the sake of righteousness. You need to understand that. It's a war between the government of God and the government of Satan. It's nice to think, and it's an easy way to, I'm battling against a sin in my life, and Satan is tempting me to sin, so I got to be righteous, so I don't commit a sin. Oh, that's good, I understand that, but he's telling us, we understand that there's a powerful rebellion against God. It's a satanic rebellion, and the purpose of this rebellion is to what? To rule the earth. To rule the earth, and for Satan to be the lawgiver of the earth. I know we read in Isaiah 14 about Satan says, I'm going to ascend to heaven and be like the Most High, and churches tell, well, he wants to be worshipped by God, worshipped by people. He wants to sit in the throne of God and be worshipped. That's not the case. That's not the case. Satan doesn't care if you worship him or not. I know we're told that is what he wants people to do, to worship him. Satan doesn't care if you worship him. He just wants you to obey him. Anybody who has been in a management position like my wife has, she had people that worked for her that didn't like her. She was a manager of 3 warehouses at Millbrook. So she had a lot of people that are underneath her in her realm of authority. And there were some people who didn't like her. I know it's hard to imagine. How could anybody not like Miriam? But there were some people who didn't like her. But she didn't care if they liked her or not, as long as they did their job and performed their responsibility at work. And if they performed their responsibility, did their job, and fine, she was happy. And Christ tells us even that there are people that worship him. He said, in vain you do worship me, teaching for doctrine and commandments of men. There's actually people who worship Jesus in vain. So Satan wants to be the lawgiver. That's what he wants, to be the lawgiver in the earth. And you become the lawgiver by being the one in power, the government. It's a battle between the government of God and the government of Satan. That's what the war is about. And as we come to Christ, and we understand his salvation, and we enter into the family of God, using the church term, we become soldiers in this battle, or at least we should be. Many are not. Now, the next line he has in that song, she has, must I be carried to the skies on flowery beds of ease. We just sang that. While others fought to win the prize and sail through bloody seas. Do we really expect to enjoy the victory without a struggle? Do we really think that we can float in flowery beds of ease to the eternal bliss when others throughout history have paid the price? Do we really think that flowery beds of ease is our future? Do we expect to win the benefits of victory without the struggle? Because there's many people I've met over the years who are afraid. They're afraid to embark on the struggle. They're fearful. And we sometimes want to be forgiving of people who are fearful. And I know that I gave a sermon a few weeks ago about this, and so in itself could be digressed in many ways. But Revelation tells us, well, let me see, Let me see if I get there. All right, I've got to get to the right verse. Maybe I don't have it on there. Revelation 21:8. 21:8. But cowards, those who refuse to believe, who do evil things, who kill, who sin sexually, who do evil magic, who worship idols, and all who tell lies, all these have their place in the lake that's burning with fire. Revelation 21:8. Who does he name? The fearful, the cowards, those who refuse to believe, those who do evil things, those who kill. But who's the first ones he mentions? Who's the very first ones that are mentioned that are rejected from God's kingdom? Even before those who commit sexual immorality. Even before those who entertain the spirits of magic. Even before those who worship idols. Even before those who kill or do unbelievable evil things. The very first person that is listed as being rejected is the fearful, the cowards. And you've met them, and I've met them, people who know the truth. Who know the truth. Now, I'm not talking about people who have to be cautious in their employment and their jobs and so forth. We understand that. But people are fearful of anybody finding out what they really believe. I know a man who used to come to church here. But his dream was to be a preacher. And he came to church here for several years, but his dream was to be a preacher. Well, today he's a preacher of a Baptist church. And knowing this man, I can guarantee without a shadow of doubt that he never, ever mentions the issue that we face today as a race and as a people. He's afraid. Now, we're told in churches that if you come to Jesus, he's going to give you a good life, right? Come to Jesus, he's going to make your house, he's going to make your family better, you're going to get a better job. If you come to Jesus, life will be perfect. He's going to give you the good life. Jesus is going to give you the good life. He's going to solve your marriage problems. He's going to maybe give you another new car. If you get that $1,000 seed of faith, you'll get a new car. Life is going to be perfect. Come to Jesus and your life will be rosy and wonderful. That's what the church should tell us, isn't it? Just come to Jesus and your problems, your worldly problems will be solved. Just come to Jesus. Life is going to be wonderful. Just come to Jesus. It's going to be great, fantastic. It's a wonderful life when you come to Jesus. It's going to be beautiful. Jesus is going to give you the good life. But is that true? Coming to Jesus, is that going to give you the good life? I mean, it would be nice. It would be nice. We read in Hebrews 11, all those faithful saints of God, and some of them did get the good life. Some of them did have powerful victories. We were also told in Hebrews 11 that some of those saints of God received cruel mockings and scourgings, and some received imprisonment. Some of those saints of God were stoned. Some of them were sawed asunder. Some were killed with the sword. Hebrews 11 says some of those soldiers of God wandered about in sheepskins, and some were destitute, and some were afflicted, and they were tormented. And we're told they wandered in the deserts, and in the mountains, and in the caves of the earth. Did Jesus give them the good life? No. They were soldiers of the cross. And they suffered as a soldier may have to suffer. And for a preacher to say, just come to Jesus, this is like the best ever self-improvement program you're ever going to have. For a preacher to tell you, just come to Jesus for the good life, he's lying to you. If you're really a soldier of the cross. If you're really a soldier, you may not have the good life. You may suffer and be afflicted and sawed asunder and killed with the sword and stoned and wander about in sheepskins and in the mountains and the caves of the earth. A soldier of the cross must be prepared to suffer as a soldier suffers. How many parents today are telling their children that you're a soldier? How many parents are taking their children and say, listen, son, listen, daughter, this is your responsibility. It's nice to say, son and daughter, come to Jesus, and your life is going to be great. That's one thing. But children need to be taught also, you're a soldier. You have a responsibility. You have a responsibility to live for righteousness. Not just to be the receiver of all the good things, the flowery beds of ease, not just to be a receiver of all the wonderful things that Jesus is going to give you, but be prepared to suffer. You're a soldier. And stand and be prepared and build your strength. How many parents tell their children that? Must I be carried to the skies and flowery beds of ease, while others fought to win the prize and sailed through bloody seas? Do we ever stop and consider the bloody seas that many, many people went through for the cause of righteousness in their battle against the government of Satan? You may very well go through life on a flowery bed of ease. I don't know. You may very well have that happen to you. But don't expect it. If you're a soldier of the cross, be prepared to stand against Satan, and be prepared that he's going to fight against you and seek to destroy you. And you may very well be one of those who wandered about in sheepskins and is tormented and afflicted. It doesn't mean that God has abandoned you. It means that you're a soldier. And every soldier goes into war understands that he must be prepared to suffer the consequence of his decision. Because there's a consequence of our decision. That consequence may be good, but in our humanity, that consequence may be considered bad. 2 Timothy 2:3 says, therefore, endure hardness. 2 Timothy 2:3. Endure hardness as a good soldier of Jesus Christ. Isaiah 42:13 says, the Lord will march out like a strong soldier. He will be excited like a man ready to fight a war. He will shout out the battle cry and defeat his enemies. Now, let me see if I can get this right thing in a screen here this time. All right. And then Isaac Watts writes, are there no foes for me to face? Must I not stem the tide or flood? Is this vile world a friend to grace to help me unto God? Throughout the history of this rebellion, God has called forth soldiers, men and women, and even children in training to be a soldier of the cross. And throughout history, the rebellion has fought against God's people, seeking to destroy God's people. And as you well, and as I've talked before, we won't go into now, but there's Satan is in a battle against God. The satanic rebellion. And Satan, in any battle, in any rebellion, he wants to win. And there are three ways Satan can win. We won't go into it in length, but I've mentioned this before. There actually is three ways Satan can win the war, win this rebellion. We don't like to hear about it. Churches don't talk about it. But there is actually three concrete ways that Satan can win the rebellion. One would be to kill God, right? Obviously, if he could kill God, Satan would win the rebellion. And he tried that, and when they put Christ on the cross, they thought they killed God. I think they really thought that. They really believed they killed God. And, of course, then he was resurrected. And so, all right, so that didn't work. And then one of the other ways Satan can win the rebellion is what? Is called Israel, because God made his covenant with Israel. We familiar with that? And he said, along the stars shine, and the moon, and the breadth of the heavens. This covenant I've made with you is eternal. If Satan can somehow get God to break that covenant, because the whole integrity of God rests upon his ability or his willingness to what? To keep the covenant. If God would break a covenant, then he would be a sinner just like us, right? So Satan figures if I can get God to sin, then he would no longer be holy and Satan would win the rebellion. And how you do that? Well, that would be natural. If you can somehow get God to break the covenant with Israel. And so if Israel can become so vile and so corrupt and so evil that God said, I can't even stand you people anymore. And then God would have violated his covenant. And throughout history, that's what has been the attempt, to cause our people to become so evil and vile that God would just reject Israel. But, it never has happened. God says, my love. The Bible said God delights in his mercy. He delights in the ability to give mercy to his people. And the last way to cause God to sin would be, of course, then what? That he was unable to keep the covenant. And that's why genocide is so important, I guess, in the program of Satan. Because if he can destroy the children of God, Israel, our people, through this genocide, then it would prove that God was unable to keep the covenant. That's the way I look at it, anyway. And so for years, there's been an attempt to destroy the people of God. And our forefathers have faced the enemy many, many times. And Isaac Watts is asking, are there no foes for me to face? Our forefathers faced foes and stood strong and valiant. Are there no foes for us to face? Is life just going to be a flowery bed of ease, and our suffering is because somebody looked at us cross-eyed or called us a name or something like that? Oh, they called me a name. They called me a Christian bigot. Oh, I'm suffering for Jesus. Are there no foes for us to face? Isaac Watts is asking. Most of us would rather be at the fishing hole, I guess, and going to the park, taking a walk with the kids, going on a mountain trail, and just enjoying things of life. But we've been called to stem the flood. That's what we've been called to. A soldier has been called to stem the flood. Not just to think about how great life is going to be for him, but a soldier is called to what? To stem the flood. Because there are foes for us to face. I know some churches teach a good Christian does not get involved in politics. I've heard that all the time growing up. You don't get involved in politics. But there's a war. There's rebellion against God. And the rebellion is between what? The politics of Satan and the politics of God. That's the choice you have. There is no other choices. There is none. You either serve God as a soldier or you serve the rebellion. You serve the politics of the rebellion, or you serve the politics of God. You are involved in politics, whether you like it or not. Because politics have done to Republican Party, Democratic Party, Libertarians. Politics is who is going to control the government. Will it be God, or will it be Satan? You're involved in politics, one way or another, whether you like it or not. And Christians need to fully understand which side they are on. Remember when Moses came down from Mount and he saw Israel sinning, and he declared, whose side? Who is on the Lord's side? Because you see, one way or the other. It's not like halfway here and halfway there. Like my father-in-law used to say about a woman, she's either pregnant or not pregnant. There's no such thing as being a little bit pregnant. You're either on God's side or you're not on God's side. It's just that simple. You're not involved in the politics for God's government. You're involved in the politics for Satan's government. And to be involved in the politics for Satan's government, you just have to not be involved in God's politics. That's all. Just kind of not be involved. And a Christian not engaged in the politics of righteousness against the politics of rebellion is in retreat. If you're not involved in the politics for righteousness, you're in retreat. You're surrendering God's dominion. And Christians should be recognized. You should know what a Christian looks like. Not because of what he says, not because of the way he talks, well, maybe the way you talk, your attitude, but you should, if you had to go out and tell somebody you're a Christian and you got trouble, okay, they should be able to just know it by the way you are. It's the story of the farmer who got a new bow. I've told this story before. Got a new bow. And he already had 3 bows. And the one bow, when he heard that the farmer was going to bring in a new bow, the one bow says, I've been here for a long time. I got me 100 heifers, and I'm not going to share any of my heifers with the new bow. And the other bow, so I've been here 5 years, and I've got 50 heifers. I'm not going to share any of my heifers with the new bow either. And the little young bow, he said, I've only been here a year. I only got 5 heifers. I'm not going to share my heifers with the new bow either. And all of a sudden, the truck rolls up, and there's that bull, big monster bull. And he's growling and snorting and grunting and grabbing and clawing at the rails. And the old bull looking at that new bull and said, well, I don't know. I don't want to be selfish. Maybe he can have some of my heifers after all. And then the middle bull says, oh, yeah, I see what your point is. Maybe I'll share some of my heifers with him too. But the new bull, the little bull, the young bull, he started growling and snorting and clawing the ground. And they turned to the little younger bull and said, don't you know he's going to kill you? What are you doing? That big old bull is going to kill you. And the young bull says, I just want him to know I'm a bull. Do we want the world to know we're Christians? We have to have the conduct of one. Is this vile world a friend to grace to help me unto God? What entertains the idea that the struggle, the battle, the willingness to be a soldier is what brings us to God? It's a simple truth. The more you love something, the more you're willing to fight for it. Is this evil force, is this evil wickedness, the struggle that in some strange way, he says, is our friend. That some strange way the evil is our friend. Because what does it do? It forces us close to God. The evil forces us to be close to God. And if we're not a soldier and we're not experiencing the battle, how can we be drawn close to God? Is this vile world a friend to grace to help me unto God? The struggle, the fight, the anger, the hatred of those who want to destroy our people, destroy our heritage, destroy our faith, destroy our nation, destroy all the things that our people built and embraced over the centuries. It's that very evil that calls us to come back and focus upon the one true God that can give us strength and faith. So he devotes a whole next verse to the blessing that comes to those who take up the fight. Sure, I must fight if I would reign. Increase my courage, Lord. I'll bear the toil. I'll endure the pain, supported by thy word. How many Christians, you flip on the TV set today, and all these preachers, and I don't necessarily always condemn. I see some of these singers on Jimmy Swaggart. I watch Jimmy Swaggart sometime. I like the music, okay? And I see these girls and guys up there, all their pretty clothes and jewelry and stuff, and they're singing, I'll be faithful to Jesus, no matter the cost. And I'm thinking, well, that's good, but, will you be faithful when you have to endure the struggle, the pain, and the toil? Will you be faithful then? Or are you only going to be faithful now when you got the contributions coming to your church and you go out buy pretty clothes to wear and sing on pretty songs on Sunday school? We don't want anybody to suffer. I don't want anybody here to suffer toil and pain, and I don't want these children to suffer toil and pain. And yet, if that's what brings us close to God, it becomes our friend, Isaac Watts says. But it's going to be tough. It's tough to be faithful when there's toil and pain and suffering and the things that we read about in Hebrews 11. See, there's two great political concepts we're facing. I'm sorry if I've gone over a little bit. I didn't realize. On one hand, there's the authority of God. On the other hand, there's the tyranny of the satanic rebellion. That's the only choices we have. We have no other choices. The authority of God produces liberty. The tyranny of the satanic rebellion always produces slavery. 2 Chronicles 3:17 says, now the Spirit of the Lord is that Spirit, now is the Lord that Spirit, and where the Spirit of the Lord is, there is liberty. Liberty comes when we submit the authority of God. Oppression comes when we submit to the tyranny of the satanic rebellion. Benjamin Franklin says, maybe he didn't understand it exactly the same way, but he said rebellion to tyrants is obedience to God. If you're not rebelling against Satan, if you're not rebelling against that attempt to destroy us, then you're not obeying God. Because you can't serve two masters. If you're not claiming to serve God and be willing to serve tyranny at the same time, it doesn't work that way. Let me move on ahead a little bit to close this up. I had that. Thy saints in all this glorious war shall conquer, though they die. They see the triumph from afar by faith discerning eye. We are commanded from the very beginning that if we are to take control of the earth, we read there what Adam was given what they call them dominion mandate. Christians are demanded, the way I see it, demanded to dominate and control this earth for the politics of God. I'm going to go up to this verse here. I'm going to close with this verse here. This is Jude writing. He says, dear friends, I have been planning to write you some thoughts about the salvation God has given us. But now I find I must write of something else instead, urging you to strongly defend the truth that God gave to his people. I would like to talk about salvation and the glories of the hereafter and wonderful grace of Jesus, but I find a necessity to talk to you to strongly defend the truth, to strongly defend the faith. And very last verse here. When that illustrious day shall rise, and all thy armies shine in robes of victory through the skies, thy glory shall be thine. Being an overcomer. In order to be an overcomer, you got to overcome something. You don't overcome. I overcome the daisies. I overcome this. You got to overcome something powerful. Our faith is a celebration of our victory. As I mentioned before, we got a songbook here, and there's other songbooks too. They have like 500 some songs, all on one theme: our victory over the satanic rebellion. There is a satanic rebellion against tyranny, a rebellion against the authority of God, and as Christian soldiers, we're just not fighting against flesh and blood, against somebody down the street we don't like, or somebody who might call us a name, or the guy who's a drunk, or the guy who's doing this, that, the other. You're in a combat against powerful forces who want to destroy our people, because they understand by destroying, genociding white people, Israel, the chosen people, the people that God made us covenant with, if he can destroy and genocide our people, it is shown and proven that God was unable to keep the covenant he made with Abraham and Isaac and Jacob, when Jacob leaned against that stone, that Bethel stone I mentioned earlier. And to combat the satanic rebellion, God calls us to be faithful soldiers. Not faithful believers, but faithful soldiers. People who will be willing to stand and not back down, and stand strongly and courageously. Like the song Onward Christian Soldiers says, like a mighty army moves the church of God. Our Father, we thank you for your blessings and watch care over us. We ask that you will help us to embrace our responsibility, embrace this struggle. Help us be strong, not waver, and be courageous. Yet we understand that we also be as wise as serpents. Help us remain faithful. Help us be a good example and mentor to our children, those children who round about us, what it means to be a devout and faithful soldier of God. In your name we ask it, amen.
Thank you for tuning into the Christian Revival Center Church service. If you'd like to get more information, you can write to us at Christian Revival Center, P.O. Box 602, Harrison, Arkansas 72601. That's Christian Revival Center, P.O. Box 602, Harrison, Arkansas 72601. Or you can email us at revival@southshore.com. Revival@southshore.com. And with that, if I can have Jonathan come up, and we're going to end with one more song.